Now, with the recent 2.1 drip marketing of Phoebe and Brant, it's fair to assume majority of players are definitely a lot more interested in Brant due to quite a few reasons, which means Phoebe is likely going to be skipped by most in order to save for Brant and the other massive names in 2.2 onwards. However, I believe 2.1's banners might play out similar to the banners within version 1.1, where most players were initially going to skip the Spectral character in the first phase being Jinxi for the fusion character in the second phase being Changli for obvious reasons. Though after Jinxi's insane DPS potential being revealed, a lot of players crumbled and pulled for Jinxi, including myself. In addition, every limited character that has released up until now still holds significant value, and so I don't expect that to stop with Phoebe. So just following up from my last video going over the 2.1 drip marketing, I'll be going over Phoebe's insane kit potential in a bit more detail, potential team synergies and the amazing versatility Phoebe holds, the massive impact of the new dot meta moving forward in Wuthering Waves, then I'll be wrapping it up with Phoebe's overall value and whether she will be one of those high valued characters that you might want to ensure you pull. Just before we jump into it, as always, would really appreciate it if you could subscribe for more Wuthering Waves content and drop a like if you enjoyed the video. Now, as we do already know, Phoebe has been confirmed to be a Spectral Rectifier character, but as for the specific role she plays, due to the release of the new Eternal Radiance Echo set, it pretty much confirms that Phoebe will be a DPS character and will utilize the Spectral Frazzle mechanic just like Spectral Rover. With Spectral Frazzle essentially being a damage over time mechanic, it means she will be suitable more as a dual DPS character, and especially with the way Spectral Frazzle exactly works. Since the closer the amount of stacks that have been inflicted are to max stacks, the more damage Spectral Frazzle will deal, with the amount of damage gradually decreasing alongside the stacks inflicted. Therefore, Phoebe will be required to switch regularly back onto the field in order to apply stacks of Spectral Frazzle to maximize its damage. With that being said, it does mean Phoebe is most likely going to be a powerful burst damage dealer similar to characters such as Jinxi and Changli, given she would need a quick rotation in order to maintain a high amount of Spectral Frazzle stacks. So there really is potential for Phoebe to deal somewhere near the same level of burst damage as Jinxi, since she will be the latest DPS. But also taking the Spectral Frazzle ability into consideration, Phoebe might possibly be capable of dealing the most DPS in a single rotation out of every other DPS, which wouldn't really be that much of a shock since it's always a character that isn't that popular that takes us by surprise with their performance. Although, even if Phoebe isn't able to deal the most DPS and deals just below the amount of DPS our current top characters are capable of dealing, it will still be pretty insane since Phoebe will likely be best utilized alongside another DPS, whereas the best DPS characters currently are utilized more as hyper carries. So it might be a bit more accurate to say that Phoebe's team overall will be capable of dealing the most DPS out of every other team, but that wouldn't be till quite a while after her release due to her current team synergies, which I will go over shortly. Lastly, with the fact that Phoebe will be capable of dealing damage over time with Spectral Frazzle, paired alongside the high chance that Phoebe will buff Spectral Frazzle's damage significantly through her kit, it will perhaps allow for those hectic boss battles to be slightly more easier, considering the stacks of Spectral Frazzle dealing damage whilst just focusing on dodging an enemy's attacks will most certainly come in clutch, and especially when you are close to clearing a boss. But of course that will be heavily dependent on exactly how much Phoebe will be able to buff the damage dealt from Spectral Frazzle. Now, considering Phoebe will be the first limited unit to be able to utilize the Spectral Frazzle mechanic, as mentioned, you would ideally want to pair her with another burst DPS character, but more specifically, Spectral Rover will be the best character alongside Phoebe on release, since with both Phoebe and Spectral Rover on the field, it will ensure you maintain max stacks of Spectral Frazzle and so will deal the most damage possible. Additionally, Spectral Rover is capable of healing through deliberation and can stop time with the outro skill for 3 seconds, which will further increase the survivability for the team alongside the Shorekeeper already being an amazing support. So Spectral Rover is clearly going to be a great match for Phoebe, but the slight issue is that their DPS isn't really the best. So I do understand if players are going to be hesitant on building up Spectral Rover if they haven't already, given the current state of DPS characters and their insane damage dealing potential. Therefore, Phoebe's team synergies that revolve around Spectral Frazzle will be heavily restricted on release. So with that being said, it does lead to the possibility of expecting another Spectral Burst DPS that can also inflict stacks of Spectral Frazzle very soon. Specifically, due to there being rumors about Zani being a Spectral DPS, there is then a high chance that she will be a Spectral Burst DPS and will inflict stacks of Spectral Frazzle just like Phoebe. Now with that being the case, both Phoebe and Zani will be capable of maintaining max stacks of Spectral Frazzle much more comfortably and deal massive amounts of burst damage, to the point where these two might end up being the strongest DPS duo in the game. However, even if it's not Zani, there will likely be another Spectral DPS with the same description releasing soon, given Phoebe really does want another Spectral Frazzle DPS alongside her. Now on the other hand, as easy as it would be to maintain max stacks of Spectral Frazzle with Phoebe and another Spectral Frazzle DPS character, considering Spectral Rover is pretty much capable of maintaining a high amount of stacks by themselves, it means Phoebe shouldn't really struggle that much alone and would still be capable of dealing a lot of damage from the amount of Spectral Frazzle stacks she applies, especially considering the fact that she should be able to buff Spectral Frazzle's damage through her kit. Therefore, Phoebe arguably has the most versatility as a secondary DPS, since even though she is part of the Spectral element, she isn't restricted to thrive only alongside other Spectral characters due to being capable of dealing damage over time, which is a bit similar to coordinated attacks and the fact that characters like Yinlin and Zhezhi can synergize with many other characters outside of their own element. So pretty much burst damage dealers such as Jinxin, Changli, Carlotta and even XiangliYao would synergize well with Phoebe, since they will be able to provide the small amount of time Phoebe would require to inflict stacks of Spectral Frazzle and deal huge burst damage at the same time. So all in all, Phoebe will be one of the most versatile DPS characters in the game, since not only will she work amazingly with any other burst damage dealer regardless of element or damage type, but will also synergize with future Spectral Frazzle DPS characters and possibly even other dot characters regardless of element. On that note, dots being introduced to Wuthering Waves is really going to change the game, and in specific, the way team building works, since as mentioned, dot characters are going to be more versatile and open up many more team synergies, along with forming specialized teams that focus on dealing damage over time, which is a step away from the traditional pattern of a DPS character buffing another through the outro skill to deal massive damage. Although, if they are also able to buff specific elements, it will allow for dot characters to be even more flexible within team building. Now in addition, Spectral Frazzle isn't exactly the only form of dot, since there is also the arrow erosion effect, which works a bit similar to Spectral Frazzle. But there is also the Fusion Burst effect and Havoc Bane effect that will deal one massive instance of damage when reaching max stacks instead of dealing damage over time. So with the introduction of these brand new elemental effects, we can expect many more characters soon capable of utilizing them within their kits, such as Braun potentially dealing Fusion Burst damage since no other Fusion character is yet capable of doing so. Also, with the arrow erosion effect working more similar to Spectral Frazzle, both could definitely synergize together, as enemies would sustain damage over time from both Spectral Frazzle and arrow erosion simultaneously. Additionally, with Havoc Bane and Fusion Burst being fundamentally the same, you could pair characters that specialize in inflicting them together or even alongside Spectral Frazzle and arrow erosion characters. So moving forward, rather than teams just having synergy due to the element or damage type such as resonant skill damage or basic attack damage, they will now be able to synergize based on their elemental effects. Therefore, team building will soon become a lot more versatile and will provide players with a lot more freedom. So overall, once again with Phoebe being the first limited dot character, without a doubt will hold a lot of value as she will be a completely unique character, which is capable of more than just dealing enormous amounts of burst damage. Of course, there is the argument that since she is the first, it might be better to pick her up later on when more dot characters have released, which is completely fair if you are intending to only utilize Phoebe within a dot orientated team. However, as Phoebe will be capable of dealing a lot of Spectral Frazzle damage herself and off field, it allows her to synergize with any burst DPS, especially if you don't have the preferred sub DPS for a main main DPS, Phoebe is arguably going to be the best alternative option and will deal enough damage to the point where you might not be as inclined to pull 4 other sub DPS characters. So whether Phoebe will be one of those high valued characters that could be considered as a must pull, it's likely that she will be if you are interested in building teams revolving around the dot meta. Also, if Zani is perhaps another character that specializes in inflicting spectral frazzle, then Phoebe will without a doubt be her best in slot dual DPS. So Zani fans might just want to ensure they do pick up Phoebe to maximize the amount of damage she deals. So pretty much it is going to be rough from 2.1 onwards with the amount of insane characters that are dropping, meaning more than ever you'll need to ensure you do properly prioritize your pulls. And with that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Would really appreciate it if you could subscribe for more Wuthering Waves content, and if you enjoyed the video, drop a like. Also, drop a comment down below on whether you will be pulling for Phoebe and if you are looking forward to the potential the new dot meta will hold. And yeah, hope to catch you guys later.